Hi, welcome to OpenRose, a free and open source requirements management application. Find more information at github.com/openrose. So today we are going to talk about a new enhancement request that I would like to start work upon. Our team has received a request to make it possible to allow data to be copied within the application. So let me first go over to the request here. If you go to OpenRose project in GitHub and look at the project, we are now talking about this enhancement. It's like a one-liner request that we are now assessing. Copy requirements including child requirements. That's the main objective. So we need to write the server-side code that supports allowing copy of existing requirement structure, and we should support ability to copy outside of the currently selected requirement structure. So what it means is that if you already have a structure, then you should not allow copy to place new requirements within the child requirement structure. Instead, it should copy outside the selected structure. Anyway, we'll discuss this more in detail, but based on this enhancement request, we thought we should be a little bit more precise about what is it that we want to do with this request, how we will implement it, and what are the different impacts, and how do we actually really document what we're going to do. To do that, we converted the overall objective of the requirement over into a concept. We call it as concept of copy requirements, and this is published on our wiki right now. We don't have a public facing deployment of OpenRose for our customers to look at our internal requirements, so we decided to just publish this as a concept in a wiki page here. Ultimately, it's still using markdown format, so we could easily convert this into requirements within our OpenRose repository. Okay, so what we're gonna do, the feature here is to copy the requirements which are at the project level, i.e. the entire project, or a specific item type, or a specific set of requirements including its child requirements. So here we're going to talk about project and item type. So let's start with the copying a project. The target is that when you do a copy, the copied project should be placed in the same repository because repository contains project. The naming convention of the copied project will be adding a suffix at the end, which is nothing but underscore copy and a random number. This number will be automatically generated. So the project name remains the same, but there will be an additional suffix in the project name itself. The item type's name and the requirements name inside the project will just remain the same. We will have a look at the example soon. So copying the item type within the project is equal to adding this suffix with the random number to the item type itself, which is nothing but a copy that we produce, and then all the requirements beneath that item type will just be the same structure with the same name that we have. Now, because we are talking about copying of the requirements, we have to also discuss about the impact on some other associated data. So the first associated data is traceability. And what we decided as in our concept, when we discussed this in our team, is that all the links, whether it is parent or child traces, we should keep them, whether they are links or traces against a requirement within the same project or across other projects in the same repository. All those traceability links, we should try and maintain that. That is the outcome of our discussion within the team. So there was some impact analysis being done about making this feature available for the customers and what shall we do when it comes to traceability. Now, when it comes to the changelog, we decided that we should not keep any of the changelog history. We just don't want any of the information about how these requirements evolved over time in the copy that we create. Copy is a kind of fresh start, so we will not make any changes to the change log data as such. And any existing requirement attribute that we have, like status, priority, severity, description, all those values that we have, we just maintain and keep those values as it is. So we are not going to reset any of those values in the copy. We just literally make a copy as if how we do a copy paste in a Word document. Baseline data. So we know that project has baselines, and those baselines could be scoped at the project level or at the item type level, right? So we are not going to copy any of the existing baseline data. The idea is the baselines that we are taken in the source project, those baselines are for a specific reason and for some specific purpose. The copy that we are creating may not have the same purpose. The copied project or the new project that we are creating or the new item type that we are creating may have a different purpose altogether. That's why we are not going to actually copy the baseline data. If baseline needs to be captured, then new baselines will be created in the newly copied project or item type. Here is a simple example. So let's say I have a project A, which has obviously parking lot item type along with software as an item type. And then we have requirements and sub requirements below those item types. So everything here remains as it is. We are not changing the naming convention or the data for item type, requirements and sub requirements. The only thing we will change is the project name. That will go from project A to project A underscore copy with the random number that we generate. The actual data just remains as it is. So that's how we will do a project copy. And if we do the item type copy, then only change will be the item type name. All other data for the requirements and sub requirements within the item type will remain as it is. And as we discussed, we will not have any baseline, we will not have any change log, but an traceability or the links that we have within the project or across the project will be maintained. It will be kept and it will be carried forward in the copy. Now, we have a small note here. So this was something we discussed in our team where we know that every project has a parking lot item type, and we can only have one system parking lot item type. So we do allow, or we propose to allow, parking lot item type to be copied. This might be the scenario or a case a customer needs that they have a lot of data in parking lot which they have just kept it aside for some specific purpose, and now they want to take a copy of that parking lot and work with that data. So we will allow a copy to be created, but when you create the copy, the new item type name, which will have parking lot with a suffix of copy and a random number, that particular new name has to be changed by the user, and they cannot rename it back to parking lot because you can only have one item type called as parking lot and of type system. That means we just will leave with a new item type, which user can call it something else than parking lot, and it will not be a system item type. It will be considered as custom or a user defined item type, like how you would create other item types like business requirements, stakeholder requirement, user requirement, software requirement, hardware requirement, non-functional requirement. So likewise, the parking lot can be copied, but you will have to call it something else than parking lot, and it will not be classified as system item type because you can only have one such item type. So you can see there are a lot of impacts of enabling this feature of allowing copy of requirements. It sounds very straightforward and simple. It looks very simple when it comes to us in an enhancement request, but what we have to do is do a proper analysis of this. And we could do this analysis purely because we have documented few other areas or other functions or features of our product. We can understand that there's an impact on hierarchy, there's an impact on traceability, there's an impact on baselining, there's an impact of versioning, there's an impact of change handling or the change request, there's an impact on where these new requirements will be kept, there's an impact on the concept of parking lot as well. So all those needs to be considered when we allow these requirements to be implemented. So the team sat down and thought about all those things. Now let's talk about copy requirements. We are not talking about copying project or item type. Now we're talking about copy requirements. So here, if you have a requirement with some child requirements or sub requirements, then again, the same logic applies that the main requirement that you are copying, it will have a suffix added to the name of the requirement, and it will be called underscore copy with the random number. But the sub requirement naming convention will not change. All the data for the sub requirements will just remain as it is. Again, for traceability, we will keep all the traces, whether it is within the project, within the set of requirements you're copying, or outside the set of requirements, or across multiple projects. All those traces we would like to keep in our implementation of copy requirements. Change log will not be kept because, again, the purpose of the copy and creation of the copy is to start fresh with the set of requirements, and so we don't believe that having those change log would be important. And then we have an example here that you have a requirement name which has got a login functionality with two sub requirements, username and password field requirements. And then when you do the copy, the only thing that will be changing is we will be adding copy 1, 2, 3, 4 as the random number generated as a suffix to the requirement name. Now, what are the benefits of allowing the copy of the requirements? Consistency is one key benefit. The copy project, item type, and requirements retain the same structure and naming convention as the original and make it easier to navigate and understand. That is important. Traceability, we're going to keep all the traceabilities across all the three types of copies. So that is also a benefit. Efficiency is another big benefit. So users will save significant time and effort by being able to easily copy large amount of requirements data. And you can read more, but here we can see that allowing copy is going to make our users efficient. They can create different templates, or they can create different sets of requirements in parking lot and then copy them over. And we also know that not only that we can copy, but after copy, we also have the existing feature, which is allowing move. So you can move those set of data that you've just copied across in the same project or across in other projects. So that's the efficiency part, which we would like to improve our product with. And then we also are talking about the template projects. So we have customers or users who want to repeat certain activities again and again. They could be event management company, wedding planner. They could be working with set of requirements which they deliver again and again, whether they're delivering consultancy or they are working with releasing, let's say, a Hollywood film or producing a Hollywood film. All of those users would require possibility to create the template and then repeat what they have done in the past and obviously improve upon what they have done in the past. So that's why copy will enable templating projects, templating item types, or templating requirement structure, and then create a copy and do the implementation of the same. Again, please remember that OpenRose is not only for corporates and team. Individual users, individual consultants, individual contributors can also install OpenRose on their standalone computer, and this copy feature will help them template their work and then repeat that template again in the future for delivering similar level or better product and services to their customers. Certain design decision about the copy ID. So we initially thought, why don't we come up with this sort of method whereby the first copy will have 1, the second copy will have 2 in the name. The approach was great, but we felt that we will have to keep checking in the database about all the siblings or the area where we are copying the target data to verify that there is existing copy with copy 1 or copy 2 or copy 3 as a name. And if there is existing entry found, then update or increment the number by 1. Now, it's not a problem to write that logic, but we felt that it could demand more for us to query the database. If you have a large implementation of OpenRose, it could take a little bit more time to go through the set of data which is already there to verify that we have copy 1, copy 2, or we don't have any of those copy items there in the target area. And then we thought it's better to use a random number because it will solve the same purpose. We expect our customers to rename the copied data at some point, whether it has number 1, 2, 3, or it has some random number generated. The idea is to make sure that we support our customers to simply do a copy and rename that copied data, copied name of the given item, and then continue using the copied data for the purpose for which it was copied. So we are trying to reduce the number of transactions and SQL queries that we have to send to the database, and we're trying to reduce the number of logic that we have to implement and do the error handling around and give the user certain feedback in some form. But it's better just to ignore all those things or reduce all those activities and rather go with the random number. So the team decided that let's go with the random number, and that's how we agreed upon this particular requirement. Now, as you can see, a simple requirement that we started with, copy as a one-liner, we sat down and we created this nice document. Now, this document will feed not only to the people or the team who is implementing it, but in the future, if somebody else is looking at the code to enhance it or do a bug fix, then they would know what were the original thoughts, what was discussed within the team in the past, and how they decided to go about the solution that they want to implement. One more thing I have done is to help customers understand how this copy would work is I've created a small diagram here, and I'm using paintbrush because it's much easier to use that to explain what I wanted to show today. So as we know, the structure within OpenRose is that we have a repository which can contain one or many projects, and each project can contain one or many item type. Each item type can contain one or many requirements, and each requirements can contain one or many sub-requirements. And you can create a hierarchical structure of requirements within item types. Now, with this structure in mind, when we want to do a copy, then what we are going to do is we're gonna select, let's say, a project. So I just want to do the entire project copy. Now, when I do that entire project copy, the new project will be created in the same repository. It cannot be created outside of the repository. So it has to be a new project with exactly all the data that you see here being copied over as a new project in the same repository. So that's the first possibility. The second possibility is to copy the item type. So I'm not copying the entire project, instead I'm copying a specific item type. When I do the item type copy, then it will be a copy of this old data and it will be sitting under the same project. It's not going to be sitting under the repository because you can't associate item type to a repository. It has to be associated to the project and it will be copied in the same project. Now, once you do the copy, and if you want that item type, the copied item type, to be taken over in another project, then obviously you can move that item type using move item type capability. So while you do the copy, we don't ask your target place or target location where you want the copy to be created. Instead, it's better to create a copy in place and then ask user to move if they want to move it. So this copy will be something like this. So we just take this entire set and then move it in the project. So it will be a new copy. The name of the item type will have copy ID with a number, which is a random number, but everything else just will remain the same. So that's one option. And that's how we want to implement it. And the last set of copy requirements would be to allow copying data, which is nothing but a given requirements and its sub requirements. So you could select a parent requirement and it will copy all the structure. So that could be one way. And in fact, here I am just showing you another example that if you select a sub requirement, not the parent post or the root requirement, but a sub requirement, then that sub requirement will be classified as the main requirement that you're copying, and then all its children will be copied over. So in this case, I will be creating a copy of this set of requirements. Let me just make it better here. So this set of requirements, and then I will be pushing it in the repository somewhere here, which means this requirement will also be linked to this as a parent. So we are just doing in place copy here. That's the idea. That's what we would like to do. Okay. So with that, I think we are pretty much done in terms of explaining how we want to implement this feature. So let's start implementing. Let's start working on it. So we have the enhancement request. We have a little detailed concept that we have written in a wiki. We have this diagram. The video that I'm creating right now will also be used maybe by team working on this in the future, or maybe new people who will join and contribute to this project. So the idea is to show you an example of how we are enhancing the product and how we expect our users to also look at requirements not just as a three-liner user story or perhaps a simple set of textual requirements, but it's better to explain your requirements detail enough so that it can help not only the team who is working on it today, but those who will be working on future enhancement, further enhancement, and any bug fixes in the future. So with that, I would like to conclude this video and thank you so much for your time today. We will appreciate if you can please share this video with others who can get benefit out of the work that we are doing. We are also very happy to receive your contributions, not only in source code form, but in other forms like documentation, like presentations, like podcast, and maybe other discussions that we could actually have to make it possible for others to use our product in the future to help them with their work, to do it right, and to reduce waste. Thank you and have a great day.